Hello, happy Lesbian Visibility Week. My name is Nic. I'm the staff writer here at DIVA, and today you're in for a right treat. I'm joined by the iconic poet Joelle Taylor, winner of the T.S. Eliot Prize for her book Canto and Othered Poems. Joelle, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hello, Nic. My name's Joelle Taylor, and I'm a poet, author, and editor. And I write books and tour. That's essentially it. Lovely to meet you.
Amazing, and lovely to have you here with us today. And in your own words, how would you describe your book to anyone who hasn't read it yet?
Canto and Othered Poems is a kind of part memoir, part magic trick, which is detailing the lives, loves, and experiences of the butch counterculture in the late 80s, early 90s UK, based on my own life experience. So there's a lot of my own self in the book, but also it's a kind of a memorial to some butch women who've passed, and to the kind of a scene that's moved on as well.
Amazing. And yeah, I love the book, and if anyone watching hasn't read it yet, what are you waiting for? Go get it. And you've described your win as a triumphant moment of visibility for butch women. What does visibility mean to you?
I mean, exactly what it sounds like, really. I mean, certainly when I won the prize, there was this outpouring of response from around the world. It wasn't just UK butch dykes, but it seemed to kind of span out and reach butches around the planet, if that doesn't sound too grandiose. So butch visibility is, first of all, that we see ourselves. I think we see ourselves, and we see ourselves as we're meant to be, which is strong, which is freedom, which is handsome, and then that other people see us as well, but see us in a way that in a meaningful way, so that we get greater representation in all aspects of cultural life, in all aspects of being. As the kids say, allow it. That's it, basically. Allow us to be and to make space at the table.
Beautifully said. Thank you. And we last spoke just after your win. How has your life changed since then?
Well, it's been phenomenal. It's been very, very busy, so I haven't been able to catch up with myself much. But one of the major things that happened was, after lots of wrangling, we finally secured a month's tour of Australia. So I went there, and I've been twice before touring Australia, but this time the events were so much bigger and there were big audiences. So I even did Sydney Opera House for a couple of nights. I did Melbourne Wheeler Centre, and then Adelaide Writers Week, which is like one of my favourite literary festivals in the world, because it's in this beautiful, beautiful heat, and it's in a gorgeous part of Australia, and it's very nerdy. Obviously, everyone you meet is into books, so it's changed in that way. You know, I'm a very physical person, and whilst I love to write, which means I have to be alone, I have also an impulse to get out there and travel and connect with other human beings. So I'm in that connecting zone at the moment, and I'm off next week to do a writer's residency in Liverpool for Liverpool Hope University, which means I do a couple of masterclasses, talk to some of the students there. But the majority of the time is writing time. I'm literally being given the space and a room to write in. So it's changed in that way. It really has. Being valued as a writer, number one. That's the major change.
Amazing. And you said then about being valued as a writer. I was wondering what it's been like navigating the industry as a lesbian throughout your career.
Well, I mean, I think lesbian art straight away is this kind of oxymoron. It's considered such, you know. So I remember writing about this in the 90s, lesbian theatre being this oxymoron, where it's not really considered to be real theatre, and it never sort of plays with different cultural ideas or different genres, or explores in that kind of way, because it's focused on the idea of lesbian. That becomes its kind of form as much as the content. So being a lesbian poet means that, number one, you're expected to write about being a lesbian all the time. I think Keith Jarrett, who is not a lesbian, has a great poem about this called "This Is My Gay Poem." You know, which is there is this strange. If you're from any kind of marginalized group, any sort of minority, there is an insistence that you write about that experience. So being a lesbian, it's not as good to write about things like, you know, tower blocks, which is what I mainly did. I wrote a lot about class. and how that affected me growing up and the kids I worked with. And a lot of the time I was going to schools every day. So literally I was doing 5 days in different schools, doing different kinds of workshops, trying to engage kids who were kind of discarded in traditional education. So first of all, I tried to look like a punk. I mean, look at me. Literally look at me. I don't know how people didn't. I think they always knew, because there was lots of, are you a miss, are you a boy or a girl? And it's like, well, let's unpack the question, shall we? Miss, are you a boy? Let's think about that. Lots of those kinds of questions. But then finally, I just relaxed into being myself, because kids, particularly with the kind of the more LGBT groups in schools, etc., they become so much more sensitive and aware of difference, and so much more welcoming as well. So that was really good. But being a lesbian in the main part of it's all about the poetry. Poetry is very, very forensic. So it's about the work you produce. It's much more about the writing, etc. But I had to try and get into a mainstream, straight dominated environment to do that, which I've written about in Songs My Enemy Taught Me, the idea that I always had to be the big joker, was always jumping around. And I think all of us try and use a way of kind of masking for a very long time. And with Conto, it just means I don't need to. There's an expectation now that when I walk in the room, it's in a 3-piece suit, and I think I've got enough career behind me to know that whilst I'm talking about this now, as a dyke, as a lesbian, as a butch, I reserve the right to talk about whatever I choose, because the writing has to lead the way.
Yep, owning your narrative. I love that. Very powerful. And you mentioned being being a punk just then, and I know that you were part of London's underground butch scene shown in the film Rebeldykes. What was it like being part of this movement?
I mean, I was so I came to London in 1992, but I'd been living at Greenham Common for a while, so there were lots of strands that were the same. So the Rebeldykes were coming from a punk background. They'd done the sort of punk to Greenham Common to London squatting, but I came a bit later. So they were kind of my elders, even though some of them are exactly the same age. I always felt that they were my elders. And it was amazing for my generation to come in. Squats were everywhere, and there were real kind of clusters of queer squats there. So you went to Stamford Hill or Hackney for the lesbian squats. In Brixton, there were lots of gay squats as well. I remember there being 2 main areas. So I moved to Brixton, first of all, because it was near Venus Rising, biggest lesbian nightclub in Europe. But the other space was Hackney. So Brixton and Hackney Dykes were kind of quite well known, and we kind of we mixed sometimes. But it was a sense of freedom, a sense of, first of all, survival, then freedom, then community, and the sense that we were navigating life together. And it's a really powerful feeling to have that sense of being held. Do you know what I mean? And ludicrously good fun as well. Dangerously good fun. Very dangerous fun.
And you speak a lot about unity in your work. Do you think that time in your life also influenced how how you go about it and how important it is to you as well?
I think so. I mean, particularly because you're coming from a state of exile, if you can imagine, during that period. Even when I came out in the mid 80s, it was absolutely, you were a pariah in lots of respects, so we didn't tell our families, certainly not if you're from a working class background. So to have that experience and always be the wrong one that didn't fit their body, and always kind of stood out in a sort of uneven, you were a badly hung picture, to then come to a space where you were a gallery of badly hung pictures. That's a really empowering feeling, and particularly when I remember so much laughter and irreverence, because women's power, certainly we had an awareness at Greenham that a lot of our power was in giggling. A lot of our power, it's very hard to kill someone who's laughing at you, no, it isn't actually. But I think we harnessed that energy, which was literally about subverting through irreverence and through not taking things seriously. I mean, what do you do when somebody just refuses to follow your rules, and laughs?
Yeah, joy is like an act of resistance. I love that.
It certainly is.
And in an interview I think you did with The Guardian, you were talking about how the in the 1988 protests against Section 28 being the first time you held a woman's hand, and we're seeing kind of like our past in the UK echoed at the moment in America with the Don't Say Gay bill. Do you have any words you'd like to share with anyone who might be watching from the US right now?
Just be strong. Be yourselves, hold hands in public, but make sure there's a lot of you. Be careful. Be really, really careful, because some of the boundaries they believe we're transgressing are absolute trigger hairs. I think, having been part of a generation who went through Section 28, but went through really, first of all, the very private, intimate violence of our childhoods, and certainly adolescence. You learn to be cautious, sit downwind of people. There is great strength in collectivity and in unity. But yeah, make sure you've checked your exits, people. Be safe. It's okay. I don't know really what to say. It's unbelievable to me that the homophobia has risen again to such an extraordinary level. And it's on, and globally, I think 3/4 of Poland now is an LGBT-free zone. To be able to just say that, I mean, it's outrageous. It's absolutely outrageous. And of course, none of our governments will intercede on our behalf or do anything like that. We're just watching it rise again. And I think that's why unity at this time is so absolutely crucial. Refocus on the real enemies. Refocus on the people who cannot conscience us.
Yeah, powerfully said. And I think, like, in the present, like when struggling to think of like what to do, although history has a lot of dark moments, it can be kind of helpful to like get empowered by the past, I guess. So I was wondering if you have a favorite moment from lesbian history.
Do you know what I do? And I wrote about it really briefly in Canto. I have one of the scene poems which just says various events that happen one after the other. And I remember them happening really close together, but the women, the Dykes, excuse me, I've just got a cold.
Better soon.
The Dykes who broke into the newsroom and were sat on by Nicholas Witchell and Sue Lawley was an amazing, amazing cultural moment for lesbians, for all LGBT people. It was extraordinary. I'm just going to have to cough. Excuse me. Excuse me. It's not very good for an interview, is it? I've been battling this cough for the last several days and it's refusing to shift.
Although I hope you feel better soon, and I'll probably be sneezing hay fever at the moment. So.
So I'd say, like, the Dykes coming into the news station, that was just an absolutely brilliant moment. It's one of those moments where you just stand up and roar, and you knew it was happening all over the country, and not just LGBT people, everybody. It was such a cheeky, irreverent, naughty, brilliant, absolutely brilliant thing to do. And they followed it up as well by abseiling into Houses of Parliament. That's my people. Do you know what I mean? No, it's just genius. And it's that same spirit of Greenham Common, which is like they say, you cannot do this thing, so go ahead and do it. Yeah, that was an incredibly inspiring moment. It galvanized a lot of us.
Amazing. And from the past to the future, what makes you hopeful about the future, lesbians of the future?
I think actually it was the Rebeldykes kind of. They had an art exhibition that went around with them, and there were a lot of this idea of a lot of younger Dykes who are inspired by the Rebeldykes and inspired by the ethics and the DIY culture and the survival all of that inspires me. The young people coming through who, have taken the best and, adapted it, make things better. And are really happy to have intergenerational conversations. I think that's what queer culture really excels at when we do it well, is the conversations between elders and youngers. And I think recently that's been broken down quite a lot. So I'm hopeful that will return, because that's really disruptive. When you have whole lines, generations of queer people talking, that disrupts all of the norms, and we can move forward as one.
I love that, and yeah, I really want to see like more of the intergenerational dialogues come back. And then I also have to ask, where was your love of poetry born from, if you can remember like a moment?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it was really through listening to lyrics in music. So really just homing in on lyrics as a very small child for whatever reason, and writing them down. And then I came across Wilfred Owen one day. I was at school. It wasn't until like I was in sixth form, which I was quickly asked to leave, but the brief moment I was in sixth form, I was introduced to this Wilfred Owen poem called Anthem for a Doomed Youth, which, being that I was quite a doomed youth myself at the time, and I was very sort of, black Mohican, black eyeliner, black clothes. It was very dark. It's all Joy Division, all of that kind of thing. It really appealed to me. And then I found some more and I got into the rhythms of it. And then I came across the performance poets like John Cooper Clarke, Attila the Stockbroker, and notably Jules, who doesn't really get the sort of acknowledgement, but she was the only one of the women punk poets, performance poets out there. So she was hugely inspiring at the time when I was a kid, to be able to have someone, that I could, to be represented on that stage. So that was very inspiring. And then poetry is like breadcrumbs. You take one, and then they talk about who inspired them, and you go on to the next poet, who goes on to the next, to the next. So, for example, a lot of the people I've named now, I don't like as poets anymore necessarily, but they've led me to this moment, and as such, I'm really grateful to them.
Amazing. And poetry and spoken word are like obviously a lot to do with the voice, and they could be really powerful tools for people from marginalized groups having your voice heard. But how did you, I guess, to finding your voice in these forms, how did you navigate finding your voice through poetry?
I mean, just trying. I had a compulsion to write, first of all, but also a very strong understanding that there wasn't the access to the arts for people like me. I mean, I got into National Youth Theatre in Manchester when I was like about 16, but this just shows you the difference between middle class and working class families. So I got this thing, and they agreed to take me not as, a director or an actor, but as a writer, a playwright, and to kind of mentor me. But they asked for money to do that, and obviously we didn't have the money to pay for it. So I realized that if I was going to get anywhere, I had to do it myself and get on the stage. That was what was so inspiring by the performance poets, the idea that they were not only the writing, but they were the performance, and they were the theatre itself. They set up a whole movement. And the punks as well. The idea that you create what you want to see, and that's what it means by questioning everything. It's more about how do we use this fabric to make something new. So, that's really what led me into it. And then through that, finding my own voice, which takes a long time. I've written before, like, authenticity takes decades to achieve. You're lying for most of your life because we don't really know who we are. It takes us so long. That's why we write about different aspects of our identity in a way of kind of trying to resolve all of that. And really, with poetry in particular, poetry is a question. It's not an answer. So finding our voice within it is about stepping in and embracing that uncertainty. Oh God, I could go on about this all night, but we're like, please be quiet. Yeah, I
Oh
mean,
no, I could listen to it all night, so thank you. Yeah. And when we last spoke, you were adapting your fabulous book into a spectacular, like a 2-hour spectacular. For those who haven't read the interview, I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about the show and if you have any updates since we last spoke.
sure. Well, we our update really is that we've approached a couple of supporting partner venues, and we've got the meetings to have. We're still very, very much planning to go ahead with Canto, the stage show, in 2023 as a proper kind of tour. But it's this awful moment we're waiting. For those of you who don't know what we're talking about, what we did is take the center of the book, which is called Oh Maryville, and it centers on these 4 butches who navigate the night in this fictitious bar called the Maryville. And one night they're in the bar together, and men break in. It's a metaphor in itself, just the idea of danger, something coming into the space that they can't prevent. So we tell that story, and it's really about the tenderness between butches. It's about that friendship. It's about exile, belonging. And we introduce the character of the Duchess as well, who's the drag queen landlady of the Maryville. Really as a device to kind of link us with the wider scene, and also all the aspects of these spaces that we feel are our home, our distinct homes. And I call it Canto the Musical because vitrines figure highly. They're very small vitrines which are filled with things like, it might be the last cigarette somebody smoked on the 4th of January 1989, or it might be something larger with a leather jacket inside it, or a film reel. But I want DJs inside as well. So the idea is throughout the whole show we have live DJ'd music in between the scenes, and then at the end it opens up into the Maryville bar, and and for it to be as visually spectacular as possible. One of our actors, E.M. Williams, is a trapeze artist, circus performer as well. As soon as I realized that that's what they were, I was like, come on, we've got to have some trapeze now in the show. So things are still up in the air, but everyone we've talked to is very excited about it. I think also to remember, because of COVID, theatre shows are 2 years behind, so there's a kind of bottleneck for programming at the moment. And we're just going to have to get to the back of the queue, I think, and just keep developing the show and the idea, and smack it out there when it comes. I can't wait, though. I really can't wait.
It sounds absolutely magical, and I can't wait to see what comes out of it.
Thank you.
And then we talked about the past a bit, but if you could go back to like your teenage or child self, obviously your life has changed in so many ways. Is there anything that you would say to yourself back then?
So many things. Don't do that. Mainly stop it. I mean, just, part of the reason I like to mentor now, and I've mentored for the last 20 odd years, is that compulsion I have, which I feel is very butch, because butch is very maternal, I get that very the butch feeling of, I want to shortcut your agony a little bit. Like, you can say really stupid, cliched things like believe in yourself, but that's essentially what I'd be saying. But I give some practical things as well. I mean, I'm very proud of what I've achieved when I came from without any financial or support in any way whatsoever, just absolute stubbornness. But, I'm 54 years old, and it's taken me an awful long time. So yeah, really, I would go back and inject some self-belief, some shortcuts into making money so I could live, and I wouldn't have to do some of the things I did to make money. Yeah, but I guess like I'm saying, the way you actually do it in real life is you mentor. I'd also say, actually, believe in yourself. The best way to believe in yourself first is to believe in someone else, I think. That's the whole idea of the collective. Get together with a group of people who are like yourself, a bit better than you. or you believe they're better. So you're constantly trying to, pull each other up. You're constantly trying to raise the bar and elevate your art in whatever way possible. And through that, hopefully, begin to believe in myself.
Amazing. I love that. And yeah, self-belief is so important. And I like that you brought it back to the like the collective nature of things. And then you mentioned mentoring, and then I was wondering as well what, obviously you've mentored other people and given advice, but is there anything that you've learned from a mentee that has impacted you?
So much. So much. I mean, okay, so let me give you 3 examples of major things. So I 3 people that are still in my life now, I met through Slambassadors when they were kids. So they were the very first Slambassador winner, Anthony and Exaguru. They were Kayo Chingonyi and Jay Bernard. And even so, I mentored them for many, many years. And then time passed, they grew older, became adults, did really well with their poetry. I'm continuing to carry on Slambassadors and still mentor. And Anthony suddenly came and commissioned me to write songs my enemy taught me, and then invited me to join Outspoken itself. And just that simple act of joining the collective absolutely transformed my life and meant that suddenly I was able to just write and to tour my work. Which is really why we get into art, is to create the art. Writing Canto, Jay. I was meeting Jay on Zoom every now and again, and we'd have these, what I began to call fictional dinners, because we both forgot to eat. And Jay asked me to look at a copy of Canto, and I'd just finished writing it. Inuit Ellams edited it. And Jay asked to see a copy, and then just wrote the most helpful and useful, incisive notes throughout it and gave it me back. And Kayo has given me some brilliant advice on my poetry over time. So really, it's particularly with Anthony, that sense of a full circle has been the most valuable thing. I'm very, very grateful that all of those kids who are now like in their 30s are still in my life.
Amazing. And yeah, that just goes to show what you were talking about earlier with intergenerational stuff as well, and the power of that. Absolutely love that. And then before our time comes to an end, I was wondering if you would be happy to share one of your poems with us.
Yep, sure. I'll do. So it's Lesbian Visibility. I thought what I'd do is one of the characters from the book. Like I said, there's a section within the book, and there are 4 called Oh Maryville, and there are 4 butches who navigate the bar, keep everybody safe, and who are chief in the uprising to protect the bar when it's invaded. And one of them is called Angel. Angel is a very young butch, a boy, basically, BOI. Still very close to trauma. You know, the butch community, certainly that time, is a community that has risen from trauma in lots of different ways. So this is Angel. It's quite violent. Angel. When Angel looks in the mirror, it looks away first. Star fist, open jaw. How the shine becomes you, clean friend, taller than yesterday, spine and unraveling plot you, odd insistence. My king of the blue tattoo, eyebrow pinned Prince Butterfly, when you walked in the room, it became you. How you brought the silence in with you, how you brought the night to its knees, back there where the quiet ones go, and now the night won't stop texting. How many times have we walked home, you and I, only to find home walking softly behind us? I have seen you leap over language to push a man back inside himself, throw pint glasses like seeds, speak to every woman as though she were your mother. I have seen your fists sob at the center of every boy is a bare room, and inside a swinging light bulb, a wire thin girl dances, stays with you, even when you look away. Angels don't fall from heaven. They leave at closing time. Unscrew their fucks in the backs of black cabs. Abandon their bodies beneath a girl, beneath a duvet, beneath the wet, dilated night, on fire. Thank you.
Amazing, amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that with us.
Pleasure.
Thank you so much. And yeah, I've read your book, but performing it and knowing what it was like reading it as well, it's just very powerful. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Nic.
And yeah, it's been amazing speaking with you today. Thank you so much for talking with DIVA today. And I hope you have a wonderful Lesbian Visibility Week and a wonderful Lesbian Visibility Year as well.
Brilliant. Thanks, Nic. Thank you.
Thank you.